Smoke curled into the sky, dark and thick, as flames consumed every corner of Marcus's ranch. He had built that place from the ground up, years of sweat, early mornings, late night sand. Now it was gone, reduced to ash in a single night. The locals whispered about the cartel, about how no one could stand in their way. Marcus didn't flinch at the rumors. He had faced challenges before, but this was different. This was personal. By dawn, the ranch was just a memory, the smell of burning wood still heavy in the air. Marcus stood at the edge of what remained, eyes cold, jaw tight. There was no time for grief, no time for hesitation. Plans had to be made, alliances called, and a response crafted. And he wasn't going to do it alone. Within hours, he had gathered 15 Navy SEALs, elite, disciplined, and ready. These weren't just soldiers. They were warriors who knew how to strike with precision. Together, they prepared to ride south, into enemy territory, where danger waited in every shadow. Marcus's mission was clear, but the risks were higher than anything he had ever faced. As the sun rose over the scorched land, Marcus mounted his horse, the SEALs following close behind. Every heartbeat echoed with tension. Every mile south, a step deeper into the unknown. What awaited them on the other side was a test of courage, strategy, and survival. The ranch was lost, but the fight was just beginning, and nobody would see the next move coming. The question hung in the air. Would Marcus and his team succeed, or would the cartel's reach prove too strong? Marcus's mind raced as they rode through the dusty trails toward the southern border. He remembered the first time he had bought the ranch, a dream he thought would keep him safe, a place where his family could thrive. But over the years, he had noticed whispers of trouble, strange trucks passing at odd hours, local lawmen too timid to intervene, and a sense that someone was always watching. He'd hoped it was nothing, that the fear was just in his head. He was wrong. The SEALs rode in disciplined formation, silent except for the soft clatter of hooves and the occasional rustle of wind through the dry brush. Each man carried stories, skills forged in conflict zones around the world. Marcus had chosen them carefully, not just for their training, but for their ability to think like him, to anticipate threats and move before danger struck. He trusted them with his life. But even trust didn't erase the tension. As they approached a narrow canyon, the shadows deepened, and Marcus felt the familiar chill of anticipation. The cartel was organized, ruthless, and they didn't make mistakes. Marcus's pulse quickened at the thought of the men and women who had been watching, planning, waiting for him to make one wrong move. He had no illusions about the path ahead. This was not just a fight to reclaim what was lost. It was a test of strategy, patience, and endurance. Every mile south brought new questions. Who had tipped off the cartel? Were their traitors closer than he realized? Marcus glanced at the SEALs beside him, their eyes steady and unreadable, and wondered if even they knew the full scope of what awaited. One thing was certain: the next move would change everything, and there was no turning back. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the rugged terrain as Marcus and the SEALs pressed further south. Each mile seemed heavier, charged with anticipation. Marcus couldn't shake the image of his ranch engulfed in flames, the smell of smoke still clinging to his clothes. Every thought was tangled with anger and determination. The cartel had crossed a line, and now he had to confront not just their power, but the fear they had instilled in the entire region. Among the SEALs, tension was palpable. Jackson, a seasoned veteran, scanned the horizon with sharp eyes, noticing details most would miss: the faint glint of a mirrored signal, the sound of a motor too distant to identify. Even with elite soldiers at his side, Marcus felt the weight of responsibility pressing down. Every decision mattered. One wrong move could turn the mission into a disaster. Meanwhile, Marcus's mind wandered to the people the cartel had affected: the ranch hands, the neighbors too afraid to speak, the small community living under constant threat. He realized that this wasn't just about revenge. It was about restoring hope and sending a message that fear could not dictate their lives. But the deeper they rode into cartel territory, the more he understood how carefully orchestrated this attack had been. Night fell, and with it came a quiet that felt unnatural, almost suffocating. Around the fire they sat for a brief rest. Marcus and his team shared whispered strategies, plotting every possible scenario. There were alliances to consider, betrayal to anticipate, and unknown enemies lurking just beyond the flickering flames. Each shadow in the canyon seemed alive, each rustle of leaves a possible signal. Marcus clenched his jaw. The battle ahead wouldn't just test strength or skill, it would test their instincts, their loyalty, and their ability to survive in a game where the stakes were life and death. The question that haunted him remained: who would make the first move, and would he be ready when they did? The night grew colder, the canyon shadows stretching like silent predators. Marcus could feel the weight of every second, every heartbeat, as they moved cautiously through the rugged terrain. The SEALs flanked him, their movements precise, almost ghost-like, each man fully aware of the danger that could erupt at any moment. The air was thick with tension, every sound amplified: the snap of a twig, the distant howl of a coyote, even the whisper of wind through the rocks. Marcus thought of his ranch again, of the fire that had taken everything he loved. It fueled a quiet fury inside him, but he forced himself to stay focused. Anger alone wouldn't win this fight. Strategy, timing, and nerves of steel wood. Jackson and the others communicated in subtle hand signals, scanning the canyon walls for signs of the cartel's scouts, knowing that one misstep could alert an enemy lying in wait. As they crested a ridge, lights flickered in the distance, just beyond the jagged peaks. Marcus's pulse quickened. Those weren't just any lights, they were signs of life, heavily armed and deliberate. Somewhere in that darkness, the cartel waited, and they knew he was coming. The SEALs tightened their formation, their silence louder than any words. Every instinct screamed that the next few hours would define everything. Marcus's mind raced through possibilities. Traps, ambushes, hidden snipers, unexpected reinforcements. The canyon seemed alive, a labyrinth designed to test courage and resolve. Each step south was a gamble, each shadow a threat. And then, from the darkness ahead, a sound broke the stillness, a low rhythmic thrum, almost like a heartbeat, signaling that the cartel was aware, ready, and waiting. Marcus gripped his weapon tighter. The moment of reckoning was near, and there was no turning back. Just as Marcus signaled the SEALs to halt, a sudden movement caught his eye. Figures, emerging not from the shadows of the canyon walls, but from behind the ridge they had just passed. At first he thought it was the cartel's reinforcements, but the way they moved, calculated, almost tactical, was different. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. These weren't the people he had expected. Jackson's sharp whisper cut through the tension. "Sir, these aren't cartel regulars. They're trained, professional." Marcus's mind raced. Could it be a rival cartel? Or worse, someone who knew his tactics too well? His eyes scanned the approaching group, recognizing gear, posture, and coordination that mirrored his own SEAL team. That meant one thing: someone had anticipated their every move. And they weren't just playing defense, they were preparing to strike first. The canyon, once a path to revenge, now felt like a trap. Marcus realized the fire at his ranch might have been more than intimidation. It could have been a lure, a way to draw him out into this exact position. His pulse surged as the adrenaline kicked in. Every scenario he had prepared for seemed suddenly insufficient. He glanced at his team. Their faces were stoic, but he knew each man understood the gravity of the situation. The stakes had doubled. Not only were they facing the cartel, but now an unknown, highly skilled force was waiting, and any misstep could cost them everything. The wind whispered through the canyon, carrying the faint hum of engines. Or were they just the cartel's reinforcements? Marcus didn't have time to guess. The trap had been set, the enemies closing in, and the next decision would either give them the upper hand or plunge them into chaos. Marcus's heart pounded as the unknown force closed in, their movements precise, every step calculated. He took a deep breath, signaling the SEALs to split into two flanking positions while he and Jackson advanced along the center, weapons ready. The canyon erupted into chaos as the two groups collided, the cartel and the mysterious operatives realizing they were facing a team as disciplined and lethal as their own. Bullets cracked through the air, echoing against the rock walls, and the scent of gunpowder mixed with the lingering dust of the canyon. Marcus moved with a calm urgency, directing his team with silent gestures, anticipating the cartel's tactics. In the chaos, he spotted the cartel's commander, the man responsible for burning his ranch, taking cover behind a boulder. With a precise shot, Marcus forced him into the open, cutting off any escape. Then came the twist. As the cartel's commander surrendered, the unknown operatives revealed themselves not enemies, but former intelligence allies who had been tracking cartel activity for months. Their sudden appearance had been part of a coordinated effort to trap the cartel at its strongest point. Marcus realized the fire, the ambush, and the southern pursuit had all been subtly manipulated by forces he hadn't fully understood. With the cartel neutralized and the canyon finally silent, Marcus breathed in the night air, the weight of revenge and justice heavy on his shoulders. But even as relief began to settle, a message buzzed on his secure device. Another threat had emerged, one that made the cartel's destruction feel like only the beginning. Marcus looked to the horizon, knowing the fight wasn't truly over and that the next move would demand even more courage, strategy, and resolve than before. The canyon was quiet now, the tension slowly ebbing as Marcus and the SEALs secured the area. The cartel's presence had been dismantled, their operations exposed, and the commander in custody. Marcus allowed himself a moment to breathe, taking in the rugged landscape that had tested every ounce of his resolve. The fire at his ranch, the long ride south, and the confrontation with highly trained enemies had all led to this moment of clarity. Justice, at least for now, had been served. The former intelligence allies stepped forward, nodding to Marcus. They explained how his pursuit had played perfectly into their broader strategy to weaken the cartel network in the region. Marcus realized that sometimes, victory required patience, trust, and alliances he might never have imagined. The SEALs, silent but steady, offered a sense of closure as well comrades in arms who had shared the risk and seen the mission through.